Here we go. I started. So we can talk about our challenge that we submitted. Who wants to go first? I can, I guess. So I did a challenge with my student, the same one. I think I talked to you guys about it last week. And he was going to work on fractions and putting them in real world situations. And my objective, I'm fifth grade math, so using models to multiply and divide fractions. And I had him do vocab words in the beginning of the task. I guess I'm supposed to talk about my assessment. Is that what I'm supposed to talk about?
I think so. Your assessment, your resource list you created.
My resource list includes all kinds of real world fractions and how to use them for area models and things like that. And then my assessment is actually what he's going to do. I did task 1 and then I did task 2. And in task 1, he was required to do 2 things, including 3-column notes, models, illustrations, and examples. And also I would look at all of that, make sure he knew what he was doing. And then the other task 2, he got to choose 2 things, and whatever 2 things he chose would be what I assessed, if that makes sense, because that's kind of the only way I could come up to do anything. What did you guys do with that?
Mine's kind of similar in the choice aspect. I did social studies, so I teach 4th grade, and we are getting ready to start our study on pirates. And so I did it was in the Weinbrenner book about there's a study guide method where you kind of give them like an outline and they pick resources, and then they kind of, I guess, in a way, like teach themselves, and they check in with you, whatever. So he's doing a study on pirates. So
that's awesome.
I had a hard time like with the essential questions on the last assignment. So I really like his ultimate goal is to kind of learn about pirates and determine what kind of reputation they have and whether or not it's fair. And so there's like certain pirates that he'll be looking into, their diet, their dialect, and some of their morals. And
that's awesome.
So
that sounds so fun.
I know. We're actually we do like a big Pirate Day celebration where the kids come dressed like pirates and learn all this.
Have you been to the Pirate Festival in Beaufort?
I haven't.
Oh, it's so much fun. My daughter won the little pirate competition one year when she was like 6. Aww. And they invade the waterfront. We went on the boat last year. It's so fun.
Awesome. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, you should. Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. So for his assessment, I had 4 different products that he could choose from. So he could write a speech for a historical conference, like about pirates. He could write an interview with a famous pirate and utilize that pirate dialect in it. Create a documentary or a visual presentation. And so that would be my assessment on whatever he chose to do. But I had a bunch of there's endless resources online, but one of them is this DVD, it's National Geographic video on Blackbeard that we usually watch. There's an actual, in Beaufort, there's the North Carolina Maritime Museum, which we take a field trip to every year. And there's like a Queen Anne's Revenge artifact section there. And so that's a resource. I had several books, but then there's also like some primary resources, like some biographies from pirates from like the 1700s that I included. There's this book called The Pirate Primer that I actually had one of my parents buy for me. And it's like a book about pirate language. And it kind of goes through like grammar and vocabulary and different things that pirates say and all that stuff. But I tried to do a mixture of like books and print and online and videos, and anyway, so that's that.
The cemetery in Beaufort is pretty cool too. Otway Burns is there.
Yes, it is really cool.
I love pirates. Not that I ever knew one.
I think it's funny, Julie, that you picked pirates because that's what I did too. It's hilarious.
Really?
I taught fourth grade for several years, so I integrated science and social studies. And for mine, though, mine was a little bit of a different spin. I posed a problem to my student that a small group of community members had petitioned to their local senator to prevent students from studying pirates based upon their negative impact on history. And he was asked as a student in Onslow County to give his opinion and create a presentation of whether he thinks kids should study pirates or not study pirates.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I took it from the aspect of the effects pirates had on communities.
Okay.
So he was going to interview a historian at Tryon Palace to talk about interactions with Governor Eden and Blackbeard. I also wanted him to interview a historian at the Maritime Museum, so he could also ask about common pirate interactions, what life was like for colonists during that time. Almost all of my resources, I didn't pull any books, but almost all of my resources were online. And then I found some videos as well. The hardest thing for me was because I had narrowed it specifically to like the impact pirates had on colonial North Carolina. A lot of the resources were text heavy, so I kind of had to find a mix between the two so that I put in my information that I'd really have to make sure that he understood how to skim, summarize, search. So that would be part of what would be uncomfortable growth for him, more than likely would be having to work through those documents. But it was interesting that you picked pirates too, but that was always one of my favorites that the kids love too. But I thought about that idea that they have there's such a misunderstanding about pirates, but honestly, I don't know when he does his research if he'll find out that it really was good interaction or not. I mean, a lot of the stuff I looked at said that the colonists depended upon them because the taxation was way too high from England and they couldn't even get a lot of the supplies. So that's why people turned their heads a little bit. So it was interesting.
Right. That's crazy. I mean, I can see some similarities because, mine was also like kind of the reputation, what like law-abiding citizens thought of them, and if that reputation that they hold is actually fair or not.
Yep.
That's so interesting.
Yep. And so I also asked mine, it's funny, as part of his initial research to create a list of myths versus facts for the first start of his project. He was tasked with creating a multimedia project to present. So I figured that would give him some choice about which opportunity he wanted to use. Right. But he also has to Skype in on the interview so that the other kids can experience his interaction so they can also glean information too.
Awesome.
That's funny, small world.
Wow.
Sounds fun.
My school, we're doing next Friday is Pirate Day, so the kids come to school dressed like pirates, and then every subject is like something pirate related. So in science, we learn about a diet, and writing ELA, we learn about their dialect.
Yeah.
We go through
We used to write sea shanties too. Yeah. We used to have them write sea shanties. Yeah. And it used to be actually that the Onslow County Museum, they offer interactives. So one of the interactives that they would offer is someone would come and do a whole pirate presentation. They dress like a pirate and they bring doubloons and all that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, I think actually one of my coworkers was looking into see if they have that available for us.
Mm-hmm. You go to you're at Dixon though?
I'm at Carolina Forest.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's funny that you have a whole day, but we used to just do it in fourth grade. So just fourth grade got to dress up, and it was hilarious. That was like,
yeah, it is just fourth grade.
Yep. That was a rite of passage. Like all the kids wanted to hit fourth grade so they could have their pirate day.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I can't wait. It's going to be fun.
So I guess we need to talk about the real-time discussion from Thursday or the recorded version if you watched after the fact. And I watched after the fact.
Me too.
And so I know that the final was one big part of that. I guess it's going to be available Friday through Saturday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Are you guys going to the conference this weekend or this week?
I was supposed to, but I am not.
I can't go.
I
Yeah.
had some plans that came in the way.
Are you going?
Yes. So I'm a little nervous about trying to get this paper done and then also do the final, and we won't get back till Friday.
Yeah.
The newest information she sent out said that it'll be open on Saturday for 3 hours will be the time limit, it looked like.
I thought she said Friday night into Saturday night or something like that.
We'll be
Oh,
doing
maybe I'm
Saturday
wrong.
at 9 p.m.
Friday at 9 or Saturday?
It says it will be released to you Friday morning and will be due Saturday at 9 p.m.
At least we'll have the day during Saturday to get it done.
And 3 hours long.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, a little nervous about that, but
Yeah.
Same.
From the video last week, I felt like it was interesting tapping back into Bloom's again. Am I remembering correctly, going back to Bloom's and how she was saying that it's funny that education is all cyclical, that we kind of come back around always. But I found it was interesting that she was pointing out, because Marzano's kind of been up and coming lately too, but she was pointing out the concepts of Bloom's and how they're more specific, I felt like, and a little more enduring. But what I'm still struggling with a little bit is I tried to include Kaplan's model into my assessment component as well. So like including those icons of different perspective, the language of the domain, I guess. But that one still eludes me a little bit. I'm not sure that I wholly 100% understand Kaplan's and what that would look like in a classroom, other than labeling what the kids are doing with visual icons.
Right. Well, it seems like a lot. I guess for me, it seems like that's something that I'm like thinking about, like behind the scenes, like while I'm planning and when the kids are working. But I struggle with like, how do I actually implement that, like involving the kids, like where they're aware of it.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. I don't know if that'd have to be something you really have to teach pretty heavy in the beginning so that the kid, well, through modeling, obviously, so the kids would have a concept. So then when they see that icon, I guess it would kind of make that mental reference for them. We're focusing on the language of the content area, or I want you to look for patterns in what you're doing. But I think it would take a lot of front loading for sure for them to understand what that means.
We kind of used to do that a little heavier with trying to teach the kids the level 1, 2, and 3 questioning and what's the difference between the questioning. I haven't done that as much recently.
Yeah, Costa's levels.
Yeah, I remember having to do that for Avid.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys remember that?
Yeah, it's coming back. It's being an Avid county.
Much recently, more focused on the Leader in Me thing lately.
Were you guys a Leader in Me school?
Yeah, it seems like we always have a new focus every year.
And you're at Hunters Creek?
Mm-hmm. Are you guys?
No, we're a school of patriotic pride, but or national patriotism, I guess. But did you guys just become a Leader in Me school?
Last year.
Okay, I was thinking it was pretty relatively recent. Yeah.
Yeah, it was last year, and before that, it was mainly Avid, I think, and it kind of seems like Avid's been put on the back burner. But I thought it was interesting when she goes back to Bloom. I mean, she says kind of everything just kind of almost fits in there when you look back on it. If you laid the models next to each other, there's a lot of overlap.
Yes, I remember saying that too. And that if you look at everything else, it's like they took the ideas of Bloom's and just kind of stretched them out a little bit, that Bloom's is still very specific. So she said she really likes going back to Bloom's because I guess it was the inception of it all.
Right. I found that very interesting because I really didn't think about it that way until she pointed it out.
Yeah.
I tried really hard to make sure I use the verbs from Bloom's, and I think sometimes when I don't have Bloom's sitting right next to me to reference or depth of knowledge questions or guides, I tend to not be as heavily aware of using that language.
Yeah, I have my little cheat sheets I try to put up behind my desk to put in my lesson plans. And just for emergency's sake,
Well, and the other thing too is, I don't know about you guys, but when I was thinking about, I thought the part where it said we tend as teachers to think about the task instead of thinking about what we want the end result to be and then working backwards. So we should think like assessors essentially, and then work backwards as to what tasks would lie up with that or match up with that.
And I've been trying to think more like that here lately.
Yeah, well, and it lines up with teaching with the end in mind. So always thinking of what your end result would be. But I think when I thought of that and then used the taxonomy and thinking about the specific verbs I was using, that helped me be more focused, because I really struggled with you, Julie. Like, I did not do as well on my project because I really struggled with, I knew what I wanted my essential questions to be, but I could not get the end result for the product to really match up with what I wanted to be. Like, I wanted my essential question to be the kids understanding, like, how do decisions made by leaders in the past impact our daily lives now and for the future? So they're kind of seeing that context, bigger picture. I could not figure out for the life of me what I wanted the end result to be until I came up with this idea after the fact.
Right. Sometimes it's easier when you're planning to focus on the process. Also, like, I think, okay, I want them to do this really cute activity. This is really fun. And then it's like they do it and it's like, well, did we really master like whatever the actual task or whatever the standard was? Did we really hit that? I have some teammates that struggle with that sometimes because they focus on like whatever kind of process that we're working on. But ultimately, like, if you consider the end first, that's really like what's going to push your lesson to reach what it needs to.
Mm-hmm. There were also those examples. Is it McTeague was the last name? One of the first ones listed that she said really wasn't intended to be for just gifted learners. It's just good teaching and practice. But I found those examples to be really useful, where they talked about, this is an activity done for an activity. Did it really get at the meaning of the lesson? So I found that one to be pretty helpful as well.
The Wiggins and McTeague?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember that. I really like that too.
The scenarios, I kept going back to the scenarios to say, okay, did I get this right? I still don't know if I did it right, but going back to those scenarios and looking to see if it lined up. I had no idea how many resources to actually list. How many did you guys provide?
I did like a whole page full, but I felt like I had so many options for him to do that I needed. One of his options was to create a learning station. So I needed to make sure he understood what that would be if he was going to do that. And another option was to interview somebody. So I wanted to make sure I involved how to do an interview, because I don't know if a fifth grader would really know what to do.
I didn't think about that. Well, part of mine was for the check-in. He was going to, we were going to work on the interview questions together, but that would be a good idea to include like scenario.
Yeah, so I did almost a whole page, but it may have been too much. I'm not sure, but I didn't really.
That's what I kept debating. I felt like I had a lot, but then Julie, when I was going back and looking at those specifics for the pirates, like I decided I had to go back and put text heavy, text heavy, text heavy, and then some interactives. But I also had to note, need to cross check for reliability, just because I felt like so many things, because I was trying to be so aware of Dr. H's stuff for EDU or .gov for those sites. It's like, oh my gosh, these are going to bore him with just black and white. So kept trying to find a mix. So I was kind of in the same boat.
I struggle too. A lot of those like .gov, .edu, they're not written for children.
Right.
If there were some resources I found online, I'd click on it, and it would even be challenging for me to understand. Like it would be on my level, and I'm not gonna assign that to a kid.
Yeah.
Well, I tried to use resources that I thought were helpful and appropriate, even if they weren't .gov or .edu.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I found a website. It was a .com, but it was a group of like historians / like pirate enthusiasts who they dedicated their careers to studying pirates, and they go out and they do like speaking opportunities, and they had like it was a .com, so I hope it's okay that I used that. But the website was very thorough, in my opinion, and had just an abundance of information that was heavily cited. And um, I mean, I understand, like, I mean, having gone to grad school, like, I understand the value of reliable resources, but at the same time, I feel like it doesn't have to be a .gov or .edu in order for it to be reliable. But I had a total of 11 resources, but mine are all a mixture. I have like an actual, I have some videos, I have some books, some like physical books, some online articles. I have a web quest, a DVD, and I try to get some primary resources also in there, so that it wasn't just like reading articles or clicking on websites. I wanted it to be a mixture.
Yeah, I included some of those higher, harder ones, and I figured it would be opportunities for he and I to work through skimming, because those were some of the places where it actually referenced why the colonists would have worked with pirates or turned their head the other way. So I don't know, maybe it's too complex. I guess we'll have to wait and see what she says.
Yeah, no, I have some too that I'm like, well, it's a good one. I'm gonna throw it in there anyway.
Yeah.
Because I would challenge them. I mean, I know, like, I'm thinking about my specific kid, and he's an extremely strong reader, so I feel like that would definitely push him.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely push him. So I wouldn't want all of the resources to be
Right. That's what I was nervous about.
but I mean, that's part of the challenge that they get. So
And I think that, as teachers, we're always learning too. So that's, this is new for me. I've not ever
For
done.
sure.
So we're kind of learning together.
I feel like we've been doing one of these ourselves. We've been doing an independent study ourselves.
Yes, I agree. What about professional insights you have gleaned during the course of this cycle? Professional, well, I mean, looking at all the resources and having to do a resource list and, well, leading a student to be independent that hasn't really worked, he hasn't really worked with me doing this before or at all. So to me, just learning through that is a big deal. I don't know about you guys, but I felt like the student and I have both grown. Of course, he's not done. We've still began this project, and he's got some time to do it. But the steps that I've taken throughout this, even with the contract and the references and everything like that, it's kind of been a real learning experience for me. How about you guys?
when she says this cycle, are we talking about like module 4 or this?
I think so. I think so.
I mean, honestly, just working with the end in mind, I think, is one of my biggest revelations, because sometimes it seems backwards, but it works. I mean, I don't know another way to put it. And I feel like if you have like in the last challenge when we had to do the essential questions, I was thinking like, well, my kid is going to be able to answer this particular question, but when he does this research, but then it was apparently too specific. So having a more universal topic, because my essential question was specifically referencing pirates, but when she gave me some feedback, it was a more of a universal question that still applied to my project, but could also apply to something else, not pirate related, about reputation and fairness.
That makes sense.
And so I thought that was really cool, because I tend to be kind of a control freak in the classroom. Like, I have a certain way that I like things to be done, and having that open-endedness, at least for gifted students, I feel like is useful in kind of pushing them to see how far they are willing to go, or if they're used to being contained in like a little box.
It really does put a new perspective on putting the end in mind when you kind of state it open-endedly like that.
Right.
Mhm. I think just in general, this cycle and just I think this class in general, part of what I really thought a lot about is the idea of differentiating. Like we talk about it a lot. We toss around all those ideas. We talk about what we do for kids who are less proficient, but the idea of really what does it mean to extend for higher learners? And I know that it's kind of extraneous, but for us in Onslow County, we just finished that last instructional framework module that was all about assessment. And this one was going.
It tied right into it, didn't it?
I know. I was like, oh my gosh. But I just kept thinking about when they use the phrase to dilute or pump it up instead of scaffolding and extending. All I could think was like, ding, 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 ding. Like,
I know.
I don't think I've arrived yet by any means, but I'm like, oh, I think I get it now. Like, I really think, and I mean, I'm old, people. I've been teaching a long time. But I think I understand more clearly. I'm on the path, not that I've arrived, but more clearly really about the diluting and pumping it up, and always thinking that pumping it up was really fitting what AIG kids needed or gifted kids needed. And it's not at all that way.
Yeah, I really liked that too. I thought it was interesting how it kind of tied together.
Yeah, that we were on the same thing.
I know.
Yeah. It was interesting that like the language that they use, dilute and pump it up. I thought that was, I don't know. I didn't like it, to be honest with you. It wasn't.
Yeah, I had a hard time. Like I had to go back and rethink that a couple different times, because at first I was thinking, okay, well, if you're making the task less strenuous for the learner, then it's moving more towards what the learner needs. And if you're beefing it up and pumping it up for a student who's gifted or working at a higher level, how is that really bad? But then when I thought about the terminology scaffolding and extending, that's really what we've been talking about so much in this class, I feel like, is not giving more of something, but really doing something different, extending it beyond.
And digging deeper.
Yeah, because like I was thinking about a classroom example, like if we took math, for example. In my class, I would have said, okay, kids, in my head, kids who need more support, they'll come back and have guided math with me at the table. Okay, but we're still working on the same thing. So I guess I am, in my mind, I was scaffolding. So I could still live with that being scaffolding. But then my kids who were extending, they were going to learning stations and working on materials that were still related. But I guess in a way that's still kind of pumping it up. It's not really extending like we've talked about in the class.
Right. So we got the 10-minute warning, and we need to talk about some of the readings that we think are pertinent, or which one was our favorite. And I really, really liked Chapter 8, Assessment and Technology. Who was that by?
Weinbrenner.
Yes. Okay.
I just like everything about Weinbrenner. It's easy to read. It's friendly. I always enjoy reading Weinbrenner. I'm like, oh, yes, I get this. It's so user-friendly.
Well, I think that's definitely my favorite. And I really like one-pagers, even in math. I like journaling, rolling the die. I mean, everything that's in here, I really like reading about and putting them into action. So
I like the 1 to 5 as well, like where they rate themselves a 1 to a 5. I said that working independently, I've always used that, but working independently, my kiddo, he was going to score himself for each step along the way. And if he had a 3 or less, that meant I need to reteach or refocus with him. So he was kind of working on some of that metacognition on the way.
And then we talked about Wiggins and McTeague some. Did you guys need to say anything else about that? We already talked about the charts and the assessment thing there. And then we have Hausen.
I will say for me, the Hausen article, as silly as it is, like, I mean, narrowing the search like that, I thought, oh, that's brilliant. Like, I remember learning that ages ago from a media specialist, but it was, I guess, one ear out the other, because I just thought, wow, that's refreshing. I do need to remember that again. And it was very interesting. And the whole idea that you could search site :edu or domain edu, I thought that was very useful.
I didn't know about all the different popular search engines, to be honest, because I normally just use Google.
Yeah, same.
So
Me too.
I thought it was
Google
interesting.
is an actual verb.
Yeah.
Google it.
Are safe and all that, supposed to be safer. And then it made me notice some more things online when I was going on there, and tips for effective searches. I mean, I feel like I do that, but reading about it was another thing. Like you said, it seems simple, but it is great for a refresher to read about all that.
In the Wiggins and Mateague article, there's like a continuum of assessments, and it goes from like just informal checks for understanding all the way up to like these performance tasks. And I was really, honestly, I was surprised that tests and quizzes fell like right in the middle. Because I always just kind of felt like tests and quizzes were kind of like your end result, like that's your summative. But
well, it kind of is with the EOGs.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but if you think about data teams that we're using now, the data teams problem solving model, even though you have tests and quizzes, those aren't always an end result. A lot of times you can have the midway mark and then reteach, go back and work again. So they become more kind of like formative.
Right. That's true. I just thought it was interesting. I really liked how this article kind of broke down those different things, because I mean, we do performance tasks as well, but I mean, we test our kids a lot because we do want them to be prepared for EOGs. We want them to see those question types and use test taking strategies and problem solving strategies. So I guess it's kind of, for me, it's kind of like, I mean, of course I want them, I think with like, okay, well, when you take your test, this is the kind of question you're going to see. And I hate that it's like that. I wish it wasn't. I wish I could score them on project-based assignments and things like that, for the entire year, instead of having to constantly prepare them to take this dreadful test of the year.
Going back to that, I think it's kind of interesting because it seems like all of us did more of the performance tasks and projects with our Cycle 4 project. We did the, open-ended, kind of authentic, complex, different end results instead of just testing.
Right.
So with our gifted student, we did that.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting to look at it that way. And we do test too much, I feel like, but we have to.
Yeah.
We have to.
Well, it seems like the new state superintendent is trying to move away from some of those. So maybe we'll keep seeing a positive effect.
That would be nice, because since you said 10 weeks left till EOGs, I'm pretty stressed because I
didn't mean to stress you.
No, it's okay. I feel like I lost so much time,
I know. Well, and it gets crazy because I get in that mode. I've taught so long that then I start thinking, okay, 13 Mondays left, 12 Mondays left. And then you start getting panicky, like, oh, yes, it does.
So I'm like, got to teach more fractions. And then now I'm on decimals. So go back to fractions.
All fractions.
All fractions. Let's forget decimals. Who needs to know about money? We got to learn fractions.
Geometry or anything else, just fractions. That's all we need, folks. Oh, my goodness.
All right. So are there any other materials we need to reference? I know we read about the ISTE standards. Did you guys read about those?
It's funny, until I got to stateside, I'd never heard of ISTE before, but they've actually attended the ISTE conferences. Some of the people have.
I haven't done that.
Me either.
I mean, I knew about what was involved in it, but I didn't really know about the standards. I know about digital citizenship. I've done that with my students, and I've done all this stuff, but I don't think I really knew I was following standards. I really didn't.
You were ahead of the game.
Well, our IT lady has us do a lot of this stuff, so I guess she knows about it. And I'm going to ask her.
There you go.
Yeah. International Society for Technology and Education.
Yeah.
Maybe I have heard of that. I just haven't heard it being called ISTE.
Yeah, they have a huge conference normally out west each year. It's
Oh,
all technology based.
okay. Awesome. Well, we only have 1 minute and 41 seconds left. Anything else you guys want to say?
Nope.
No. Thank you for organizing it, Kim.
Yep,
Yes, thank
no
you.
problem. I hope that everything goes well on your exam on Saturday.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you guys. Good luck.
You guys too.
And
And I hope you get settled, Julie, and I hope everybody has a great week. I'll miss you guys on Thursday and Friday.
yeah, have fun.
And be
Thank
safe.
you.
Be safe.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Have a great week.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.